Hello and welcome to my channel. Well, it's another rambly one here, but I was just thinking about how collecting knives, if it gets carried away, can be like an addiction, like a knife addiction. It can happen with other things. Now, I got to put this disclaimer in here. I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving medical advice or psychological advice or anything else like that. I'm just putting my words out here for people to, take it or leave it type of stuff. But one of the things I think you can look at it is when does it change from being a hobby to an addiction? And I think that can best be expressed by the word control. Whenever you've lost control, then it's a problem. If you've got it under control, then it's not a problem. I mean, this sounds simplistic, but it can happen gradually. I mean, it can happen all of a sudden. It can happen gradually. I used to buy knives just as tools. I would have a pocket knife. I would have a camp knife. I'd have a work knife. I had a little bit of a collection, but not like a collection. Just like I had a particular tool that I was using, and I thought maybe I can use another one with a little bit longer, but I wasn't trying to collect every one from that company or anything like that. And so if we keep it down to like control, then the way to turn it back into a hobby instead of an addiction is through control. And one of the ways I try to do this, I'm not saying any of this is 100% miracle, one of those late night infomercials. Subscribe to my series, my 100-course plan for only $9.95. No, this is just what I've observed or try to understand about it. So the first thing is control. I set up a budget for myself, a knife budget. So that way I can... Now, you can set this budget too low or you can set this budget too high, so you have to be really careful about what your knife budget is. It's how much can you spend per month on a knife, or knives, and not hurt anything else. That's the way to do it. Now, for me, another thing that I've learned is while you're doing budget stuff, always make sure you pay the most important things like housing, transportation, stuff that if you don't have this, you're going to be out on the street, or you're going to get tickets, or bad things are going to happen to you. A lot worse than missing out on that latest knife you were trying to get, So take care of the essentials first. And then after that, if you've got, it all depends on your budget, If you're independently wealthy, you probably don't even, you still need a budget, but you probably got somebody doing it for you. But for us peons, for us regular folks, like I said, it can change from, I like that, to I want all of those. Or, to me, it's like when I'm collecting things, it's like, here's a puzzle, and these are all the different pieces, and you know what the overall picture should look like, but you're missing pieces to the puzzle. And so somewhere in your mind, I think it could go down to basic hunter-gatherer thing. We were hunting things down and we were gathering them up, and somewhere along the line, I think a lot ways you can control this, like I said, for one, is a budget. You set your limit. Like mine is usually like $100 a month I could spend on knives. I usually violate that. I rarely go under that. what's the consequences to it? Well, you can't just explain it off if you go past your budget. You have to analyze it, look at it, and say, all right, did I set my budget too low? Is that why I'm violating it all the time? Because I actually do have more money available and I feel like spending it? Well, then adjust your budget up, to whatever limit it is, so that you're not violating it all the time. You want to get away from the habit of explaining things away. Like, oh, it's going to be all right, or this is okay, or you can get hit by all kinds of things. One of the main things is like the fear of missing out. It's a sale, or there's only going to be so many of these made and everything. Like this copper one. Now they're available. Think about that idiot that probably paid like $300 for one brand new in the package that you can get now from the website for like $30, What an idiot. But if they never made them again, that guy might have made some money off even paying for that $300. There he's doing something different. He's not a collector. He's more like trying to be an investor. Or he might be a collector that's so desperate that he can't wait until they make more of them. It can happen on things like flashlights too. Like why do you have 3 different flashlights that are basically the same thing? Well, this one's copper, this one's red, and this one's green. Right there, it's the different colors. Much like on a knife, different handles. You can get the same, and this isn't a good example, but you can get the same knife, and basically it's just got different covers on it. It's the same knife, but it's different covers. Well, it can be a difference. Or if you're trying to collect every one of that particular pattern, and you see it, boom, Another one is if what you're doing causes a lot of distress to either you or people around you. Like you've got a loved one or something, like you think you've got everything under control, but they think, nah, you're wasting your time spending your money on those knives, and you should be buying, more practical things. You've got enough knives. And believe me, I've lived with spouses before, and I know how it can go if people get on you about your spending habits on anything. And yeah, that can be a lot of friction right there. So that's why I say you may have to set a budget that you've got more money, you could spend more money on knives, but you're going to catch some grief. So you might have to try to do some sneaking around, hiding around things to get, hey, whatever you need to do to get by in your relationship. That's why I'm single. One of the reasons is basically freedom. Sometimes you can have too much freedom, when you're single, because then you have no one controlling you other than yourself. And if you're not in control, who's going to control you? So, like I said, I guess the main thing is control. Set some kind of like measurable thing that you can check yourself with. And then if you run into it, don't just explain it away, like maybe write down an excuse, for that month. So if you look back at it, why did I violate this budget? Oh, because, I won the lotto and I don't need a budget anymore or something. Whatever the excuse is, if it's real, fine. But if it's fake, you're going to go back and look at it and say, well, there's my problem. I can't be honest to myself. If I can't be honest to myself, how am I going to be honest about anything else? You're so good at BSing that you BS'd yourself into having a problem. When this, like I said, this is only for people that have an issue with. So one of the ways you can limit, like I said, is a budget. The other one is control going to places like eBay or knife websites, or even, I know this is kind of like counterproductive, but even YouTube videos on knives that you're interested in, because sometimes that's like advertising. It's real. Your mind is already set that you want to get something, and then you see a video where somebody's got one and goes, man, I really love this thing. it's friggin' great. It does all this and does all that. And you're like, well, I really don't need one, but he likes it a lot. And you convince yourself that maybe for whatever reason you want to buy one, you buy one. Well, if that exceeded your budget, then you found one of your reasons right there is you're easily influenced by videos and stuff like that, and so maybe limit yourself on the amount of videos you can watch. Like I said, this is kind of counterproductive coming from a knife channel, you know, like, oh, you should watch all my videos and like and subscribe and buy my merchandise and all that, you know. But like I said, I'm just trying to tell you my experience on stuff like this. It's different. This is, like I said, this is psychological. This is not a physical addiction. There's a difference between the two that sometimes gets blurred, but both can be equally devastating if you don't have any control over it. Again, you know, it sounds like a parrot. You need control. You need control. But uh-oh, something fell over. It was a cake I should bake. Or is it? No, it's chocolate fudge brownie mix. Family size. See, all the dinosaurs are going to have brownies. But, yeah, like I said, I don't understand a lot of times. You know, you get a good thing and you will say, well, this is version 3. Let me see what version 10 does. Okay, version 10 is okay, but it's got, let's see what version 1 does. And you see, that's just a small example right there. You know, all these, the main thing they have in common is they're translucent, glow in the dark, and they're different little flashlights. These, you know, it's different colors and material, but see, you could call this one like a different kind of steel. Well, this one has a different kind of steel. Look at that. It has these characteristics, and this steel is better at this. And it's not really steel, it's aluminum. But anyways, there you go. That's just my ideas on that. Just my ramble. I didn't want to go too long on it. But the thing is, don't beat yourself up too much if you violate it. It was like, well, I couldn't control this budget this time, so I'm just giving up on it. I'm just going to go crazy, you know. Get out the credit cards. Let's go. Let's buy every knife I ever wanted. Let's wipe out those wish lists. You're going to regret that later on, probably, you know, especially if you're using a credit card. But, yeah, like I said, if you find that a lot of times these purchases you're doing are late at night because you've been drinking, and all of a sudden drinking alcohol lowers your inhibitions, you know, to stuff, so you can convince yourself a lot easier when you're hammered, you know, that you need whatever it is you're, you know, attempting to buy at the time. So yeah, there you go. That's my little ramble on knife addiction, or really any kind of like material thing, you know, artwork, flashlights, it could be bottle caps. I mean, not that they even really do that anymore, but yeah, you can get into all kinds of antique things. Like I said, if it gives you pleasure and you're not causing yourself grief or people around you a lot of grief, then you've got it in control. Everything's fine. If you're out of control, you need to start looking at it as like, how can I control this? Don't try to do it all at once. Just start putting limits, you know, like, all right, first I'm going to try to set myself as a budget, you know. And if you're having a problem with that, just start attacking that issue. You're like, what caused me to do this? You know, don't let yourself BS yourself into thinking, you know, that's a valid excuse. Like, oh, well, I need it. They were going to go out. That was like the last one that they had in stock. Well, you can wait. That's always an option too, you know. You don't have to, like, okay, sometimes you can miss out. It's not the end of the world, you know. If it causes you an issue because you've got that fear of missing out, then you've got to come to grips with that these things, you know, like Rough Rider, like, for example, the Marbles D2. When those things came out, they were great knives, and they weren't much more than a standard knife. I don't have one with me. It was basically all the different patterns in D2, and they were only like $1 or $2 more than their traditional bone 440A, type steel ones. I was like, wow, I'm gonna try those, and I got as many as I could. I didn't get the complete set. I think I missed out on the trapper or something like that, but I got the jumbo trapper. I got the small lock back, the sow belly, and all that. Well, as soon as they made all those, they sold out of their stock, and they didn't replenish them for years. I mean, right now, Chicago Knife Works has 3 out of the ones that are in there. I haven't checked Smokies, where they originally came from, but, Smokies owns the Marbles brand too, I believe. But, yeah, so in that case, getting them as quick as I could, or as many as I could, turned out to be, to my advantage, because if you could find them, they were like 2 or 3 times the price, or they just weren't available. People just, didn't realize they were actually that good or whatever. But that's just one example, like sometimes it does. I didn't hurt myself for getting them, because like I said, they were like 15 to, I think, like maybe $20 at most when they came out for each knife. So it wasn't like, breaking the bank. I wasn't buying $300 knives at a shot, just to fill out the collection. And I didn't get them all, like I said, and to me, that sometimes you have to look at it too, like, how important is it to fill in this puzzle or this picture if you don't like that particular pattern or you find no use for it? Well, now you're just buying just to complete a collection, just to fill that picture in, because you really don't like those. It's just like, well, and then sometimes they can fool you, the manufacturer, like Rough Rider Stoneworks, for example. You would think those were complete, and all of a sudden, pow, they start churning out a bunch of new ones. So now your picture is no longer the original picture. Now it's changed. And to have a complete one, you need all of them. And how strong is that desire to get all of them? If it becomes a problem, like I said, then you need to try to control it. You need to come to terms like, wow, even if I get them all right now, they're just going to come out with something different maybe later on. However you justify it in your head. But like I said, to me, setting a budget really helps. And then if you're having an issue, don't watch Cutlery Corner at late at night if you're drinking and ordering and stuff. Like, why did I order this? Well, you had on a video about knives, and you were drinking, and you let them talk you into buying that $300 set of knives that you didn't even want one of them. But now you've got, 150 or however many they did in their little sale that you figured you needed. Anyway, there you go. I've rambled on too long. Believe me, I've made mistakes before. Usually not on buying knives, but buying too many. It's not usually like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have bought that knife. It's not, I wish I wouldn't have bought that knife then. I wish I would have waited. I've had that happen before. And there have been knives I've regretted buying too, like I've been suckered on eBay by sizes. I've been, something will zoom in up real close, and you'll think, wow, man, I don't have a Bowie like that. That thing's huge. I like the coffin handle. If you don't have anything in reference to it, this thing could look like a 10-inch Bowie knife, maybe somebody with really tiny hands holding it. But there you go. I've goofed off long enough. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.